Well, our Ferrari has finally made it home, but since it's been here, I've been on high alert. You see, every time we get close to finishing these rebuild projects, I always receive an unexpected visit from the Grinch. He tried to steal our Audi R8, he tried to take the RS7 for a joyride, but my Simply Safe home security system stopped him dead in his tracks. In our first encounter, the second he tripped our motion sensor, I was notified immediately on my phone via the Simply Safe app, where it also recorded his shenanigans in my garage. Ever since this, I couldn't imagine not having my place secured by Simply Safe. Its system is so intuitive and super simple to install. Most of the equipment comes with double-sided sticky tape, so you can literally install what you need in seconds. And I say what you need because they don't oversell you. You pick out exactly what works for your place, big or small. And even if you lose power or internet, you don't have to worry because Simply Safe continues to work to keep you protected. Did I mention there's absolutely no contracts, which seems to be an anomaly in the security industry? And with home monitoring starting at right around 50 cents a day, it's extremely affordable. If you want to step into the new age of home security with Simply Safe, visit simplysafe.com/samcrack or just click my link in the description box below. And I want to give a big thanks to Simply Safe for being a continued sponsor of the channel. Now it's time we get back to work on our Ferrari. Simply Safe! If it wasn't for you, this Ferrari would have already been mine. Now I want you guys to imagine the most perfect Ferrari, the latest model right off the showroom floor. Its price tag, just over $400,000, but money is no object to you. You sign the papers and drive it out of the dealership. The ride home is one of the most thrilling of your life, especially since some guy smashed right into the side of it at a busy intersection. I'll be giving you guys a tour of the 100-mile totaled 488 Pista in an upcoming video, but it's imperative that we nail down our mechanical issues on the 360. Once our misfire is diagnosed, all we need is some light body work, a new windshield, some service, and we're good. But before we get into the important stuff, I have to address the Ferrari experts in the comments section who demand a redo on the floor repair. Well, I'm sure all of you are seasoned welders, body men, Ferrari master techs, and in some cases Nobel laureates. I disagree with your assessment of my floor repair. Sure, I might be biased, but I can take and openly welcome criticism. I would be a fool not to take some good advice. Most of the comments seem to be bothered that I didn't TIG weld in a new panel. To those, I suggest you look up panel bond. If you're still bothered, then I hope you don't own a modern car because manufacturers have been using panel bond on parts like quarter panels and roofs for quite a while. Due to the location of the damage, I wasn't comfortable TIG welding this area unless it was completely disassembled. The damage was extremely close to the coolant lines outside the car, and inside there would have been additional major disassembly warranted if you didn't want to catch the interior on fire. The difference would have taken several more days, dozens of hours, and likely would have provided a more aesthetically pleasing repair. But go ahead and comment down below how it'd be any more functional. I admit, my undercoating texture is ugly, and if I could find a product that would match the original factory style, I'd be happy to grind and respray it. But otherwise, this is my car and I repaired it in a way that works for me. Now, the first time I drove the Ferrari was about a month ago. Besides it being an unusual environment, everything seemed okay. Rated at around 400 horsepower, the engine feels strong. And while the transmission isn't the fastest shifting, it gets the job done. And that's why I wasn't really freaked out when the check engine light showed up just after a few minutes into its first drive. Then that check engine light started blinking, something that was a little more alarming since I've never experienced this ever. I immediately pulled the car back into the garage, scanned the codes, and was presented with specific engine misfire codes on cylinders 2 and 5, and a random misfire code as well. I thought this would be pretty easy to figure out and could have been related to overfilling the engine oil, old gas, or bad plugs, but as you're about to see, I've spent days gathering tools and supplies to diagnose all of this, and let's just say I thought a time or two about giving up on this Ferrari. For more information on the blinking check engine light, I called my good friend Alex Palmieri. He's an ex-Mercedes master tech and a full-bred Italiano.
Allora, visto che parliamo di questa Ferrari, ve lo spiego in italiano. Scherzo, I'm kidding. Now, even Ferrari in the United States after model year 1996 was mandated with OBD2, onboard diagnostics, number 2, and this required an illuminated check engine light, and there are two different types. You have your standard solid check engine light, and this could indicate anything from a loose gas cap to a bad mass airflow sensor. And then you have the bad one, a flashing check engine light, and what this indicates is a catalyst damaging misfire. This is a misfire that's so bad that raw fuel is being dumped into the exhaust, and it could destroy your catalytic converter by overheating it. So at this point, what you want to do is shut off your Ferrari or whatever car you're driving, kiss baby Jesus, get yourself some good espresso and whip out your scan tool. You're going to scan it for codes, and you're probably going to find some current and stored misfire codes. And in my experience, it's best to check for spark first. This could be a bad coil, a bad wire, or a bad spark plug, and since the fuel injector is still injecting the fuel, it dumps into the exhaust and it could ruin the catalytic converter. Ciao, ciao.
Grazie mille, Alessandro. Now, unfortunately, my auto parts store didn't have a gold baby Jesus piece in stock, so we're gonna have to send one up to the big guy and pray I didn't make things any worse than they already were. Per Alex's suggestion, let's start with our ignition system and diagnose this misfire. Now, you can hardly see them, but the spark plugs and coil packs in this car are right underneath the frame right here. So they're a little bit of a nuisance to get to, especially for the ones deep down there, but you can actually do it by hand with hand tools. So right now what we're gonna do is we're gonna specifically remove cylinder number 5 spark plug and coil. We're also gonna remove cylinder number 2 spark plug and coil. I'm gonna swap those with other cylinders that aren't missing right now, and I'm going to put in brand new spark plugs in those 2 cylinders. I went and ordered 8 right here, so by the time this job is done, it will have 8 brand new spark plugs. But if our misfire travels to the cylinder that we swap that coil pack to, so if I swap cylinder number 2 coil pack to cylinder number 3, and our check engine code now shows that we've got a misfire on 3, we know our problem is our coil pack. If the problem is cured completely, that means that our problem was our spark plug. So let's go ahead, let's dive in here, disassemble it a bit, swap things around, and see if that helps us figure out our misfire. So I swapped coil packs with cylinders 2 and 3, and also with 5 and 6. Believe it or not, 5, the closest one to the rear of the engine bay here, that was the most difficult one to get to. The ones in the back are actually easier. And all 4 of those spark plug holes have brand new spark plugs. So it's going to be tough to actually see right off the bat when we start this car, because it generally was not throwing an immediate misfire code. But here, we're going to go foot on the brake, key in the ignition. And I will tell you that when we were having our issue, I could definitely feel a hesitation, a misfire. It's not super apparent, but you can hear a little chug. So let's see if that comes back immediately or not. Yeah, it feels pretty similar to the way it did before. I've just been idling the car a little bit here. I've given it a few revs, just a couple thousand RPMs, nothing crazy, and our cylinder misfires came right back, so that's not good. With the engine warmed up and running right now, what I want to do is pull the plugs on both cylinder 5 and 2. If things grossly change, that means that our ignition system on those cylinders is all good. But if they don't change and the engine still kind of sounds like it does now, then we likely have a problem with the ignition system. So right here, I've got the harness, I've undone it, and it definitely has changed. Here, I'm gonna plug it back in now. It's now plugged in and connected. Now let's go and try that same thing on cylinder 2. Okay, you can hear it just changed. I've got the plug out. Now I'm gonna put it back in. Hold on. Since I really didn't find any issues with the ignition system, let's test for a vacuum leak. Now there's a very simple, cheap, and easy way of doing this. You gotta find out where your gaskets are here in the intake manifold area. The intake manifold cover, where it says Ferrari on each side, connects to the intake manifold right here. So there's a gasket just for the cover, and then there's gaskets down here that connect to the head of the car. There's 8 individual ones for each cylinder. Now all you got to do is get a can of brake clean, carb clean, or in my case I've got some starting fluid here, and spray it all around the gaskets while the car is running. Again, what we're going to want to do is listen for a change in idle. Now, I just sprayed pretty much everywhere around these intake manifold gaskets, and there was no change in idle. So we're going to take this one step further. Before we go and take our intake manifold cover off, and if we really got to take the entire intake manifold off, as far as I know, the convertible top has to come off, which requires lift. I mean, this could get very involved, but let's cross our fingers and hope it's not that bad. We got to do a smoke test. We're going to look for any vacuum leaks in the Ferrari engine bay, whether it's a vacuum hose or whether it is one of these gaskets. The gaskets have been known to fail, but like I showed with our generic test, just spraying some starter fluid, it didn't change the way the car idled at all. So this is a cool engine. I've got plugs here in the intake manifold. Now, these are really cool expandable plugs I found in the plumbing section of my local hardware store. And then simply, I've got this $5 bargain tool store pump routed in right here. There's just a little inlet right here. See the screw right there that plugs off that one? I undid the screw. Plug that in there and put a shop towel around it really nice and tight. And then we've got a dollar cigar right here. Now, I want to give a lot of credit to Ed Redis. I saw this method on YouTube. This is not my original idea, but this has got to be the quickest way to throw together a smoke detection apparatus. So all we got to do is light the cigar, pump, and then the pump will suck in the smoke from the cigar. Put it into the engine. Let's see if anything smokes. I'll be honest, I've never smoked a cigar, so I'm not really sure how this works. As a matter of fact, when I was going to the store to buy this cigar, I had no clue what I was talking about. I just told the person behind the counter, can I have the cheapest cigar that you have that is a normal size cigar? And this is what they gave me. It was, like I said, I think it was $1 or $1.19, something like that. I do have it taped to the end of this pump here, just so it doesn't fall out while we're mid-pumping. But here we go. Well, let's just see if this is working. If I take the bottom plug off here and I suck in, this should. No, see, there's not even any cigar smoke coming out of here. All right, guys, admittedly, I have no clue what I'm doing, so I threw the first cigar away. I got a smaller one. These were 2 for 99 cents, and there's our smoke. So now we're going to hook it back up, and let's pump some smoke into the Ferrari engine here. I don't see anything coming out anywhere. I'm checking in between here in the intake manifold. I want to look deep down in there, and I just don't see any leaks. I don't think that's our problem. Just smoke tested this side, didn't see anything down here, over there, nothing. So we don't have any vacuum leaks. Man, I just wonder what this could be. This will be one of the last tests I perform on this car before I freak out and have to do a compression test. Right here, hooked up to the fuel rail, I have this. This is a fuel injection pressure gauge. This is a very simple tool. They rent out for free at most auto parts stores and is like 20 bucks at the bargain tool shop. And it just connects to a Schrader valve right there on the fuel rail. Now, again, everything's separate in this car, so there's 2 of these. And we're going to test each side, make sure the pressure is consistent, and make sure it's full. If it is, that means that it's not a fuel problem. But if the fuel pressure is all wonky, all over the place, or low, that means that we probably have a failed fuel pump, which is an easy replacement. The part is somewhat costly, though, but at least we'll know we don't have any major issues with the engine. I've got a helper in the car. We're just going to start the ignition power. First, go ahead, just turn to click 1. Okay, go ahead, start the engine. Shut it off completely, pull the key out, and do it again. Just start the engine all the way. All right, go ahead, just click the ignition on. Well, both side fuel pressures read about 50 psi or a little bit over. There was a difference in the two. If you notice, when we just cranked the ignition on the driver's side, just the ignition, not the engine on, it didn't read any fuel pressure whatsoever. Now, that could be due to the immobilizer system and the way that thing works because it's so strange. So I'm going to test that one more time. But the fact that it didn't prime the fuel pump on this side means that we could have a relay issue or we could have a fuel pump issue. Let's check that out really quick. I went and swapped the left-hand fuel pump relay with the AC compressor relay because it was pretty clear that the AC was cold when the car is on, and that had no change in the way the pump acted with with just key on or engine on. Obviously, pressure is most important when the engine is on, but there should be some pressure when the key is on, like on the right-hand side. Because I've never experienced anything like this before, I went out to the auto parts store and got another fuel pressure tester gauge. And on my follow-up test, the right-hand fuel pump started doing the same thing. 0 pressure with key on, jumping to around 50 psi with the engine on. This is all so strange, but since the appropriate amount of fuel is being shown on the gauge while the engine is on, I can't really see this as being a fuel issue. I spent the last week staring down the engine bay of this Ferrari, turning it on and off, and performing all the tests you saw in today's video and a few other things, and I'm really surprised that I haven't even been pointed in the right direction as to what our problem could be. I do feel a little helpless, and I feel like giving up sometimes, but we can't let that happen. This Ferrari's issues will get solved, I'm convinced of it. It's just going to take a little bit more time. Now, I've been spending a lot of time with this car, and it's really been prohibiting me from putting out videos in a more timely fashion. So what I've done is I've ordered a bunch of parts that I think that might actually help with this issue, and I've ordered some general maintenance parts. And a lot of those are coming from overseas, which again take time. So I did something to be able to put out more videos. I went out to the local salvage auction and I bought a new enthusiast car with some light front end damage, and I'm really excited about just kind of putting that together in between diagnosing our Ferrari issues. That doesn't mean that our Ferrari is going by the wayside. The second I figure out these misfire issues, I'm going to be making a video on it and how I resolve these issues. But until then, we're going to work on a few other projects just so, again, I can provide more videos, more content here on YouTube. Now, I really want to give thanks to Alex Palmieri for his explanation on the flashing check engine light. If you haven't already checked his channel out, Legit Street Cars, I really recommend you do. I'm going to leave a link for it in the description box below. He recently bought a 400,000 mile BMW M5, and who really knew that one could last that long? I think it's on the original engine as well. Now, I also want to thank Simply Safe for being a continued sponsor of the channel. They really make projects like this Ferrari possible. And I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. I'll catch you very soon.